I'm Linda Fabry, and this is the full analysis of the intuitive painting of the month for December 2020. So this painting now has a name, and this is a printout of the oracle card. So it's called Sing in the Rain, and I'm going to go through all the different insights. I did some research on the symbolism of all the characters in the scene and their placements. I'm going to talk about that and talk about a couple of things that are happening that are related to the image. So this was created, if you didn't get a chance to see the live painting. So the way that this was created, participants chose the background colors, and they were put on the background, and then we went through and I painted what was seen in the kind of ink blot there, and it became this scene. And this is exactly how an intuitive painting session is done. So if you'd like a private one done just for you, I can channel a painting from your higher self and give you all the messages. So that's really what we're going to do today. I'm going to turn the camera around and I'm going to go through all the different symbolic aspects and talk about the message of the oracle card, which is a message for this month ahead. So I just wanted to have the camera on to say hi first. So if you're watching, say hi, let me know that you're tuned in, or if you're watching the replay, say hello. Okay, so here's the painting, and I wanted to show you, this is the card. Each month when we create a new card, it becomes, or a new painting, it becomes a card in the Sacred Journey deck, which is this is the open edition. There's also a limited edition. And I wanted to, because this is the last card or the last painting of the year 2020, so I wanted to kind of just look at some of the cards that led up to this one and see where there are some similarities. So maybe kind of a theme running through. Now I don't have the last, I think the last two cards printed, but I do have the early this year. So I'm going to start and just kind of give a quick recap of what we created. Let me see if I can get this to focus it. Okay, so here's January of 2020, right? It's almost a year ago. And it says embrace the unknown. So what I'm seeing in similarities is some of this orange and yellow kind of woven through, kind of the same. And if you look right here, let me get a paintbrush so I can point at things. Right here, this image kind of reminds me a little bit, it's like a blue version of this one right here, right? So it feels like it kind of went from that blue to red, and we're going to talk about those colors in a little bit. Gonna get some dragon energy here. What's interesting with February, this was from February, it's called Empress of the Dawn. We look at this snake here and some of these ideas of predator and kind of things that induce fear, things like that. The symbol, this right here, I've determined as a jackal and is related very much to this snake in the grass here that came up in February. And again, with this kind of, these orange colors kind of woven through. So that was February. This is March, where these orange colors became kind of took on a life of its own in this dragon, and talking about not to fear the fragile things in life and about love and how it affects us. This is April, about vision, the vehement visionary, talking about holding up these ideals, expressing ourselves and letting things grow. And there's a lot of about self-expression in this for December. And you see this person here with arms outstretched in red is very similar to the main character of this month's painting. And then this is May. Focus on the first step, really slowing things down over the summer months, just like, you know, focus on the first step. We still have that red in here, but really submerged in water, which we see again coming up this month. June, took us out into the universe, which the message of this card for this month, really that connection, unleash your peace. Um, it's really more ethereal than like finding your footing and that stability. So that was June. July, making your way, leaving the shores and making your way gently down the stream. Again, some more water. Here we're like really in it. There we're in like a vessel on it. This is August, and it was really heavily in surrender. And again, like that deep, we went from that blue character here. I feel like that was embodied and then transformed in August. And September was about illuminating the illusion. So really recognizing that your truth and your divinity isn't found, it's not just about the light, it's also about the shadow. And that you're to feel fulfilled, fully embodying who you are, your full divinity isn't just about your light, it's about your wholeness. And that was the wisdom that came through in September. And then this was not a month, but this was a live, so all of these were created live with the collective. And this was just kind of a spur of the moment thing I felt like doing. And what's interesting is we have the frog returning from here, and I'm going to talk about that, and elements of like mythology, like Athena, the owl. And this was kind of like an invitation: enter the looking glass, take my hand, an adventure and transformation awaits. And I feel like this is very significant for the message that I'm going to talk about today. And there's a lot of similar colors here. This blue-green combination is in this owl, and see the owl right here is kind of mirrored in this frog down here. So we're going to talk about that. And then I wanted to show last December's painting. So this is a year ago. We have this shape right here. It's kind of this kind of blobby thing with things hanging down, which is very similar. This was kind of hidden in the shadows. Now it's kind of out for us to really take a look at. So let's talk about this month now that we looked at those. And just a reminder, like these cards, if you get your own intuitive painting session, I have a whole collection of images that I'm going to be working on from people who have already had it. So there's kind of a wait, but you can potentially have a card that's created from your own image, which is nice. All right, so I'm going to start up at the top. I'll give you a little tour of the painting. And if you haven't watched the full live session, you can watch the time lapse and you can see like how the images emerge. So it started with just an ink blot, and then I think maybe we determined it was a reindeer. The reindeer up here showed itself, was one of the first to show itself, and then this, which I wasn't sure at first. I was like, it kind of looks a little bit like a fox, but it didn't feel like a fox to me. And just from looking at, so what I do is I go and search online and look at images, and really to me feels like a jackal or a coyote, but the word jackal feels right when I say it. It just has that type of energy. So I'll talk about the symbolism of that and the relationship to the reindeer here, and the wing came up, and there's a little chicken over here, and people dancing, and footprints, and a frog. So all of these things I'll talk about. I'm just going to kind of go down the line here. So I want to start, actually I was going to start with the reindeer, but I want to start real quick and just mention this green right here. A couple people said too that it felt very much like Aurora Borealis or Northern Lights, or and it feels like that to me too. Like that feels like a correct. There may be some other things, but what's really interesting is as I was doing all this research and looking at stuff, I realize that where I live right now in the northern part of the U.S. in Wisconsin, and some other states around here, we're able to see the northern lights, which is very unusual just this week. So I just want to mention that. I thought that was pretty cool. Um, so, I'll talk about that in a second. But I want to start with the reindeer. So one of my favorite sites, and I'll put some links in the description, is a site called whatsyoursign.com, and she breaks down and she provides so much information about symbolism and symbolic elements and kind of the background and histories of things and just a multi-perspective breakdown of symbolism, and I love her site. So I wanted to share the person that runs that site, her name is Avia, and I wanted to share what she wrote about the reindeer. Let me just make sure this is focused in while we talk about it. Let's see. Focus. There we go. It's a sweet reindeer. Um, and one of the things that stood out to me when I was looking was that she said, due to their specialized foot design, it's highly unlikely you're ever going to see a reindeer trip and fall. And so she's saying that's a great lesson for us humans. Reindeer teaches us to utilize our internal advantages to get sure footing. And so that's one of the cards that we looked at. I think it was July, was not to focus on your footing. Don't worry about having sure footing, but to focus on your faith and your, you know, trust that you're, in what she writes to her words, we are all equipped with unique gifts we can use to easily walk through challenges. And I think that's really important. And there's something very sweet about this. It's a very gentle, it's a very, there's something, when I look at this reindeer, it softens my heart. And so I want to say that there's a component there, um, inspiring us to be compassionate toward ourselves and to look at ourselves with a compassionate eye. There's something very just soft and gentle about this reindeer here. Um, and so it's about adapting to the season, which I'll get into too, which is connected to like our frog down there and things. Um, and so reindeer are caribou. They're generally um, a sign of travel. They migrate far distances. They're survivalists. Reindeer give they give further testimony of their adaptation to cold conditions via their schnoz. So their noses, they're uniquely splayed out, which means they have more surface area in the nostrils that allows them to warm the air that they breathe in. So there's a connection to the breath. So if we think of taking deep breaths, how we calm ourselves. So there's some self-soothing here. So when I was writing the card, it's about, there's a message to soothe yourself. Let the chorus of creation soothe you. That's your breath. Breathe in and let your breath soothe yourself. Because there is some fear and stuff like that coming up. More about the reindeer here. Oh, this really kind of blew my mind when I read it. I don't know if this is an accurate legend. So Avia was writing, I think it is. I found a couple different accounts that were different, but I really like this, and so I'm going to roll with it. I think whether it's accurate or not, it really it feels right in terms of what the message that is coming through in the painting for us. And so Avia writes about the renowned Scandinavian legend of Disa, and I hope I'm saying that right. Disa was the daughter of the chieftain under the rule of King Freyr. So I'm going to read Avia's words. She was purported to have untold beauty and unmatched wit, and her story goes as such. One day, the king and his council were entertaining the idea of sacrificing all the old and feeble, and Lisa was horrified by the idea, so she spoke up in defense of the elderly and sickly. And I feel like that's relevant to what we're living right now. And they retorted with with a highly mature, quote unquote, not response, basically saying, "Oh yeah, you think you know what you're talking about? Hush up and fetch some mead." So Disa was in a righteous fury, and she demanded the chieftains challenge her wit and wisdom, and if she passed, then her wish to save the weaker members of the kingdom from sacrifice would be granted. Should she fail, she must forfeit her own life. So they basically what they thought was an impossible task, and they told her that she could travel by foot, not she couldn't use foot, wagon, horse, or ship. She must arrive neither dressed or undressed, and she could not arrive when the moon was waning or waxing. So she essentially traveled to the island in a sleigh pulled by a reindeer. She wore a fishing net, and she arrived at the full moon at dusk and fulfilling all the hurdles of the challenge, right? So I felt like that was a relevant story because we have this full moon. We just had a full moon. There's a reindeer here, and it feels very much like overcoming a challenge. And we do have some themes happening in our collective experience that involve our most vulnerable people of our society. So I felt that that was really relevant. I feel like there's a connection there. So looking at where this is showing up in the overall painting, kind of zoom out and look at the overall painting. If you've had an intuitive painting session with me, you'll know how I like to divide that in quadrants. And this is showing in the upper left quadrant that typically represents our internal processes, things we're very well aware of because it's above the horizon line. And so this is in our kind of internal, this is our internal monologue kind of thing, where this side would be more external. This is the internal monologue. This is maybe what's going on for many of us processing things, okay, is this concept of what the reindeer represents. So a little bit more, pretty much symbolic reindeer meanings are travel, surety, service, guidance, sensitivity, exploration, opportunity, right? So that's what's happening up in here in our internal kind of intuitive processes. Now, move right across. So there's just this really fascinating, I don't want to say conflict, I want to say contrast. This contrast between the eyes here of the jackal and the reindeer, right? So going down, I want to take a look at the jackal. Now, when I think jackal, I tend to think Anubis, like ancient Egypt, like the god Anubis, who presided over mummification and judged the moral worth of the dead. And so there's these connections to death, and I think of the death card in tarot and this kind of ending and beginning, right? And so what's really interesting too, I want to point out, is the frog very, very close by, and the frog also has a corresponding deity from ancient Egypt in Heket, I think. I'll get to the frog a little bit more, but I want to talk about the jackal. But there is a connection. It's like death and birth here, very, very connected. And the jackal, I think, represents some fears. I think the jackal is, symbolic of that, but also of survival, because, jackals are scavenger. They're very independent and intelligent, and adaptable. And there's also that's something that the jackal and caribou or reindeer have in common, is they're adaptable. So it may also represent searching for something or challenges, and it may also be related to anxiety or some of those fears about being duped, because we do have this connection with like coyote and trickster kind of energy, and this side of the painting is typically the external side. So these are external processes, these are things we're observing or happening outside of our mental, emotional. This is things that we are seeing or experiencing. So there may be a little bit of that, but right next to the jackal is the frog, and the frog is symbolic of, man, like these growing pains. Like the frog really gets growing pains. They start out, they transform so much in their life, and I'll go in a little bit here. The frog's got its back turned to the viewer. The frog is coming out of, what's really interesting about this painting this month is that almost all paintings, all intuitive paintings, have a white border that go around the entire painting, right? I'm just gonna, there we go. If I'll give you an example, here's last month's. You see the white border all the way around, right? This month it went off the page on the bottom, and I it felt very significant at the time, and I feel like it's very much part of the message is that um, it also corresponds here. I feel like one of the things that it didn't make the card, there was this concept of the veil doesn't lift, you go through it. It's like we're coming out of the mud or the depth of creation. There's a very much creative energy here. And I feel like that um, frog is representing that. It's neither internal or external, it's right center. It's very much below our horizon line of awareness. So it's something that's kind of a subconscious process or something that is coming up to be it's not quite active in our vibration yet, but it's coming up. And some of the symbolic meanings of the frog are luck and purity and rebirth, renewal, healing, fertility, opportunity, transitions, metamorphosis, that big change. And one of the things that, and again, I went back to what's your sign.com from Avi. I love her wording on things. I really relate to her. And she says, the frog understands what it's like to go through some serious growing pains. And I feel like that's really what the frog is representing here. I feel like it's connected to this blue, which is in our like throat chakra, like speaking up. When the frog jumps into your life, it may indicate now is a time to find opportunities and transition. And the frog energy is also considered to be a link between the living and the dead, which is that green here is very much connected to that aurora borealis, which I'll get to in a minute. In Egypt, we see the frog-headed Heket. That's who I was talking about. So we've got Anubis and Heket, Egyptian goddess of birth, Egyptian god of death. So together, it's like an ending and beginning. What I found really beautiful was in the Japanese language, frog and return are essentially the same word. At least that's what I read. And sometimes when people are traveling, they'll carry little frogs with them as a kind of a talisman of returning, of a safe return. And I feel like there is that kind of like this return happening. So frogs remind us about the importance of change in order to achieve the best versions of ourselves. And protection, and they're also a symbol of protection through that. And so I want to go up a little bit to what's next. So the frog is kind of like hopping into the water, right, with the rest of them. There's kind of the symbolic of like a baptism. I feel like going into the water, kind of this rebirth. There was, when I was writing the card, the card now is called Sing in the Rain. The first version was Dance in the Rain because it felt like this kind of celebration, but it felt so closely related to, like I can feel it right now as I'm talking, like in the throat chakra and speaking up, and that comes from this chicken symbolism I'll talk about in a second, that it had to be about singing, and so letting your soul cry out, right? So there's change, and there's sometimes fear with change. So let your soul cry out. Let it move you. Now is the time to speak up for what you need and what you want. And that's coming through from this chicken. So let's go in and look at this funky chicken hanging on the side of the moon or earth or whatever. So at the time this was painted, there was also a full moon and eclipse. And I feel like this chicken is the eclipse coming up over the side. And when I first painted it, the one of the participants mentioned Pollito, which is it's like a nursery rhyme or a children's song, and so I looked it up and then got it stuck in my head for a few days. But essentially the song is saying like the little chickens, they say peep 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 or tweet tweet tweet, and they speak up because they're hungry, they want food, and so then they and I feel like it's very symbolic of what the message or why it's in this painting and why it's coming through for this month is a message to come up over the horizon, speak up for what you need, let yourself be heard. If you're hungry, say so. You know what I mean? It's like the little chickens are peeping because they're hungry, and then the mama chicken feeds them. And that's really, it's, you know, it's time to really express yourself, express your needs, let the universe, you know, sing in the rain. If it feels like things are pouring on you, sing out, let your soul cry out, let it move you, right? And I want to just kind of go over a few things about the chicken as a spirit animal that I felt like were relevant. So it's about power of your voice. It's about hearing and heeding your inner voice. And that I was talking about the snake spirit animal. That in the, I think it was February oracle card. I put it away, but the snake too. It's very much related. You need to speak out about something that's been bothering you for a while. Let your voice be heard. Otherwise, you'll be carrying the burden. So it's like as it comes up over the horizon, let it out, let it go. But also listen to what your inner voices are telling you. So as you express yourself, find a way to express it. You may feel that there's not a lot of like trust is such a word that comes up and we go, ugh. It's not about trusting other people, it's about trusting your own higher self, your own intuition. And it's also related to family and community, right? So that's about, and so speaking of the eclipse, I'm going to kind of zoom out here, take a big picture look here. So like I said, there's this I feel like is related, and this is an internal, so this is all internal processes, but we are as collectively experiencing a lunar eclipse, and with a lunar eclipse, it can create some tension and anxiety, uncertainty, insecurity, but it's really a lot of these symbols are saying we're able to adapt to changing conditions. There is change, and that's what the card says, is that once again change is here. Change is always, right? Things are constantly changing, and while change brings hope, which I'm going to talk about the star here. If you see the star, I'll share a bit about that, which is a symbol of hope on a couple levels. Sometimes there's fear with change too. I mean, there's always that kind of uncertainty, and especially when we have highly charged energy like a lunar eclipse happening. Let's kind of zoom out a little bit here. So I'm going to talk about that in a second. Let me just, there we go. So the lunar eclipse, you know, some of the things I was looking at, the lunar eclipse can represent a resetting of your emotions. That felt like a significant statement. It feels like that's kind of what's happening. It feels that resonates with me. Let me know if it resonates with you, but there's this sense of clearing away all the emotional baggage of the previous 6 months or even year. Like, let's clear and cleanse. There was a lot of, as I was writing, some of the words that came through were like washing away and cleansing, and we've got this water and this energy kind of doing that. And with that sense of impending change can feel exciting and hopeful, but also a little scary, and can make it hard to relax. So that's what this kind of eclipse imagery is about. Now, if we look right here, there are a bunch of stars here, but only one has this kind of equidistant cross shape. And just kind of bring it up over here a little bit more. Whoop. Over here with the reindeer. And so what's really fascinating to me is the we have, and I want to thank Teal from Joy Journey Insight for pointing this out to me, that this star here is two things. One, and I'm going to read directly from a really short article on Pop Sugar. As 2020 comes to a close, the solar system has decided to grace us with a cosmic Christmas miracle that hasn't been witnessed in nearly 800 years. So on the winter solstice, December 21st, Jupiter and Saturn will align so closely in the night sky that there will almost appear to collide from our vantage point here on Earth, creating a radiant point of light often referred to as the Star of Bethlehem, or the Christmas star, or the Great Conjunction. And that occurs, this conjunction occurs like every 20 years or so, but this is the closest they will line up in the night sky since the Middle Ages, since like 1200s, right? And so that's showing up internally. So we will feel, I feel like it's saying to us that we're going to feel that very much internally. And I also want to talk about just those planets and what they represent for us, too. Oh, zoom out a little bit. This is a big painting. It's not usually this long, and it's like almost out of frame, and I think that that's very much represented with that image down below. So Saturn and Jupiter, so that's showing up right here, but I feel like the energies of this conjunction are throughout the whole painting, and I kind of are the change. It's what the change is about, right? So I just want to go through really quick. So some of the meanings, or symbolic meanings around Saturn, are about like domination, authority, transition. It's more about a slower pace. It's more methodical. Could be related to like construction and stability, or observation. Where Jupiter is about expansion and good luck and protection and wealth and abundance and optimism and generosity and those kinds of energies. Unrevealed power can be part of that too. So what was really interesting while I was looking at these two planets and their kind of energies and their meanings, I came across, I didn't realize this, but again from whatsyoursign.com, in symbolic astrology, Jupiter is the expansive, gregarious planet, where Saturn is the limiting, restrictive planet. And those two planets symbolize a replacement of old to new patterns, as Jupiter overthrew Saturn in the ongoing saga of power and ancient myth. Herein lies the symbolism of old father and new father, as well as old ways and methods replaced by newer methods. I feel like that's very much what's happening. That's what's represented in almost every other symbol in this painting. And so that's what the great change is about, that's happening. And I want to mention too, so in this, that being represented as a star is, I feel very significant, because, and again from Teal from Joy Journey Insight, and I'll put links to her site too, she shared with me that the star card in tarot is a card of hope. It's the dawn after a long dark night. It's the promise of spring after a long cold winter. It's the reminder that each of us has a light within us that will be our guiding North Star. The star is linked to healing after traumatic events, inspiration, optimism, and even a sense of relief as you begin moving past a difficult situation or set of challenges. The star is there to remind us that even in the middle of turmoil of a spiritual awakening, there really is a light at the end of the tunnel. Have courage, for harmony and alignment are on their way. Take heart and dare to dream again. All is not lost, and things will start to get better soon. Look up and let the stars be your guide to a brighter future. So it's really this, there is a lot of hope and a lot of beautiful things to look forward to. I wanted to say, I was trying to find the right word. So all of this, and then where I started in the beginning was this green here, which when we were painting, and if you attended the live, we talked about, what is this? What should it be? I was kind of seeing an elephant in here. I'm like, oh, but I had this very clear sense not to paint on it, to let it be what it is. And as I was looking at, I really feel like it's related to the Aurora Borealis. A lot of people, a lot of participants were talking about that too. And we've got this 3-point light shining down, coming from, I always think of the white out here as kind of like the ethereal realm. And I feel like I got really choked up when I was starting to read about this because I feel like the aurora, this representation of the aurora borealis coming down and really touching um, this red. I think there's a lot of like red can be representative of like passions and anger and all these things too. There's just so much emotion. It feels like red hot. And then this green coming down and kind of washing over, being in the water and in deep in our emotions. And red skies can be a portent of doom, but the aurora borealis in the sky, that magical, unusual green that shows up, often can be thought of as like symbolic of like the ethereal realm or the spirit realm coming and touching us and reaching out to us, and the realm or the veil lifting and communication with those who have passed. And we've lost a lot of people, more than usual, and just as a collective, as a human culture and a society. And it feels like this is representing kind of the non-physical realm, um, touching our lives and reaching out to us and soothing us in a way. Um, and there's this light coming over here. This is very central, right? So it's both internal and external. It's not just one. This is the internal process. This is the external, and external is seeing some of this light and this flight. So it does feel overall hopeful, very much connected to kind of a moving forward, a movement and transition. So that's the overall. There's a lot going on in here, and there's so much more in the image. I always like to invite people to, so take a minute. Um, there's images on my page and on my website where you could just sit and look. There's so much in here that can speak directly to you through images than I could ever put into words. So I invite you to take some time, and if you feel called to, journal with it. I always like to say that. And here's, again, just to recap, Sing in the Rain. Once again, change is here. While change brings hope, there's often fear. So let your soul cry out. Let it move you. Then allow the chorus of creation to soothe you as you join in with the one song of the universe. Universe, one song. So that is December 2020 painting of the month and our Sacred Journey Oracle card. I'd love to hear what you see and what you feel in it and what your thoughts are. Does that resonate with you and your experience? You can leave me a comment or send me an email at linda@lindafabry.com if you like. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your month. Bye-bye.